Alright, so today we're going to learn how to write your research paper in an IMRAD format. We are going to try to talk about how you should be able to write your research paper in a publishable format. We need to actually convert our research paper into an IMRAD format, which is more acceptable in the journals. So what do you mean by IMRAD? It means introduction, methodology or methods, no, resort, and then results and discussion. Or this will be our objective for today. No? First is how to order your material, no, and then you should be able to construct a neat abstract. How you should be able to do that, and then third is to describe your method so that other researchers would be able to repeat your study. So let's talk about how you should be able to do that, and then report your results precisely. And lastly, make your discussion relevant and interesting. So how do we do this? How do we write in an IMRAD format? So let's start with your abstract. No? So what is the abstract? The abstract is it is considered essential for providing a condensed, potted history of your results in a fraction of words that you use in the paper. So what is really the abstract? It's just the compressed version. If there's one thing that your readers would read first, or if the reader will actually decide if they are going to read your paper or not, it is the abstract that they will read first. So you have to really spend time structuring your abstract in such a way that that will be able to capture the essence of your paper. At the same time, it will hook the readers to really read the whole paper. So again, people don't read the whole article. So usually, they read the abstract and decide whether they would have to read the whole article or not. No? So that's very important, because as a researcher, you wanted your paper to be read by the readers, no? So if you don't actually write it well, no, the result is that you fail to capture that audience of which you wanted this audience to really read the whole paper. Okay, so what should the abstract contain? It should contain, number one, the objectives, and then the design, and then the setting, okay, and then the participants of your study who is involved, and the main outcome measures. No, what were the main outcome measures that you have gathered, and the results, no, and then the conclusion. So that is how important the abstract is. It's whether or not the readers will continue reading the paper. And if you fail to really get the gist of your research paper, you will not be able to convince your readers to really read the whole paper. No, they will just look at it and stop reading the whole thing. Okay, so this is an example of an abstract here. No? So first of all, you don't need to write the objectives, design, setting, participants, etc. Okay, so you just have to this is just a template, no? You start with the objectives of your study. You say to determine whether specialist nurse intervention improves outcome in patients with chronic heart failure, and then you try to mention what is the design and what is the setting, no? So the setting is acute medical admissions unit in teaching hospital. Then who are your participants? Okay, so you have 165 patients admitted with heart failure due to left ventricular systolic dysfunction, and the intervention started before discharge and continued thereafter with home visits for up to 1 year. And then you talk about the main outcome measures. What were the dependent variables that you have measured? No, time to first event analysis of death from all causes of readmission to hospital with worsening heart failure. No, and what were the main results? Okay, so 37% in the intervention group died or were readmitted with heart failure compared with 45 or 53% in the usual care group. Okay, so compared with the usual care, patients in the intervention group had fewer readmissions for any reason. So if you notice, there is just a comparison between the intervention group and the control group, and there is a clear statistical information as to the results. Okay, and the conclusion states here, specifically trained nurses can improve the outcome of patients admitted to hospital with heart failure. So it makes a difference. So you try to conclude in such a way that you'll be able to capture what were the essence, no? What were the abstractions you got from your results? Okay, so basically the abstract is 250 words. Okay, so you're done with your abstract now. Let's try to go to your rationale or your introduction. Okay, usually this is called the introduction. In a research paper or in a paper that is about to be published, usually we fit all the things that is written in our dissertation or thesis, including the introduction, the review of related lit, the theoretical conceptual framework into the introduction. But what is the essence of the introduction in the context of IMRAD? No, it should be actually short and arresting and tells the readers why you undertook the study. No, and it should fit on one page as much as possible. It should be brief rather than expansive, and the structure should funnel down from a broad perspective to a specific aim. Now, we have here a suggestion as to the paragraphs that you should contain. The first paragraph should contain the summary of the current knowledge of your research area, and this should lead directly to the next paragraph. So basically, what do we write in the first paragraph? We wanted to show the readers that what we know about the topic. So what is being done in the topic and what is currently known at that particular topic that you chose. Okay, so basically we can summarize this with a saying, what we know. What we know. Okay, so what do you know about the topic that you're currently studying? So you write it down. If you're a teacher teaching learners about curriculum implementation and you wanted to test a particular strategy, what do we know so far about micro-teaching? So micro-teaching is a strategy, a cooperative learning strategy that we use in order to maximize the teaching ability of our learners and to actually teach the topic to other colleagues or classmates in the classroom. So basically, everything you know about the topic, you write it here. And you should at the same time try to be exhaustive. At the same time, try to determine which among the information would be relevant as to the first paragraph. The second paragraph, you need to write there what you don't know. What are the gaps? What are the things that we still need to find out about this topic? Now, especially in social research, in conducting educational research, you will find out that a lot of things that we have to do, when we read about the research papers done in different countries, there is always the concept of context. There could be an innovation done in a particular country or in another setting, but what about the context of your learners? The context of the learners here in the Philippines, in Cebu, or whatever area you are located. So, in the second paragraph, you try to talk about, summarize what other people have done in this field and what limitations have been encountered with work to date and what questions still need to be answered. So you try to explicate to the readers what are the things that are missing, what are the gaps that needs to be filled, and what was being done. So try to put that here in the second paragraph. So basically, personally, my idea is that you can really cite, but others would say you don't have to cite in the first paragraph or in the introduction. Well, the thing is, there is a need for you to really cite, especially if you're doing IMRAD, because there's no review of related lit here. You will just put it here in the introduction part, and you need to be very exhaustive. Now, for the third paragraph, you should clearly state what you plan to do or what you did and why. What you did is after your proposal already. But the thing is, usually it's already when you publish your paper, you're already done with it. So what you did and why? Why did you do that? And what are the possible benefits? You can write it here in paragraph 3. Okay, so you can clearly state your objectives. If this is a proposal, you can write it there. What is the objective of the study? Or if it's already done, you can state the objective of the study and what you plan to do or what you did and why you have done that. Okay, and what were the possible benefits of such particular study that you have conducted? Okay, so that's for introduction. Only 3 paragraphs. It should fit in one page and it should be able to capture the essence of the study. Okay, so in the introduction, you try to employ topic sentences. Try your best to hook your readers in the first line. That's very important. You need to capture their attention. purpose is that the introduction is where the readers would like to find information and tells them exactly what you did in the study. You don't need to review all the literature available, but you need to find it all and read it in the context of writing the entire paper. No, you don't have to read the paper, all the papers in the world, but the thing is you need to have, because that is a very limiting strategy. If you want to read all the papers, really be exhaustive, that will be limiting you. But at least you should be able to find out by reading the abstract of the papers that there is a study about it. No, you should be at least exhaustive in a sense that you understand how things work and the mechanisms around the topic that you have. Okay, so you need to be able to understand and to show to your readers that you have read what the people before you did about the topic that you have. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, so you have to discard scientifically weak studies and only draw evidence from rigorous, most relevant and valid studies. So that's why it's so important that you also exhaust all possible sources of information. Ideally, you should done a thorough literature search before you began your study and updated it along the way. This is essential for you to write a good introduction. Now, without reading what the people or the researchers before you have done, you will not be able to really provide a good introduction. But you should avoid including a lot of materials. So you are torn between being exhaustive, at the same time you are not allowed to put a lot of materials. We don't want our readers to be told basic information and what they already know. For instance, like asthma is a common chronic disease of childhood, is already very common. So if it's general knowledge already, you don't have to put it there. You should be able to think about ways as to get the gist and at the same time capture the attention of your readers. Now let's go to methods. Now, how are you going to structure your methods? In methods, you try to, the purpose of this is really to describe how you obtain results. It's like having a recipe. You wanted the person to be able to cook that particular recipe as accurately as possible. It's a secret recipe. Now, when you're writing your methods, you wanted your readers to be able to replicate what you have. So you should be detailed enough for that person to be able to replicate what you did in your research. Thus, you need to give precise details of the study design, specify the methods you use and how you analyze the data. And then provide information where the study was used. And you should be able to have a description of the method used to obtain it. Okay, and next is that the method section should only be as long as is needed to describe the essential details. No need for it to be very long. Now, as long as you'll be able to help the readers really replicate your study. In reading the section, other researchers should be able to appraise your work critically to repeat your study exactly the way you did it. Subheadings include participants, study design, specific methods, data analysis, or you can add depending on the study that you have. Okay, and you need to also include ethical approval. If possible, this should be secured, or the least there should be a discussion of how each of the dimensions for ethical considerations were considered. There are many dimensions for ethical considerations. We'll try to create a video on that. What are the different dimensions for ethical considerations? And you have to really explain how you made sure that the ethical considerations were being focused at the same time were being addressed in your study. Okay, so that's methods. So what about the study design? In this context, we will be talking about quantitative research designs, and you should be able to really distinguish what are the different quantitative research design. But I will include some of the designs found in qualitative, just to give you a general idea. But we will have an exhaustive discussion about this in the upcoming video. So if you are learning from our discussion, if you are realizing things in our discussion, don't forget to subscribe and share this YouTube video, and don't forget to hit the bell button so that you'll be updated in our future videos. Now, first is we have the naturalistic and existing data research design. So under this design, a type of existing data design in which events or behaviors are described based on review and analysis of relevant historical and archival records. Okay, so what happens in the naturalistic and existing data research design is that it's a more of capturing what is naturally happening. Usually you can employ something very closely related to this is what you call the ex post facto design. But for the ex post facto design, it is more of something in the past that happened, and you wanted to capture the data and information that was captured in the particular research. In a naturalistic and existing design, we wanted to capture the natural flow of things, no? And you don't actually manipulate any of the variables. So what you have to do is to utilize historical and archival records. There is data mining in a sense, because you wanted to look at how this information happened, and you look at the relationship of the different variables as they happened naturally. Okay? Very related to this is the survey and correlational research design. In a survey and correlational design, it's also non-experimental because there is no manipulation of information or variable. It's a non-experimental research design used to describe individual or a group by having participants complete a survey or questionnaire. So you have a survey, a questionnaire. Say, for example, this is very common in an election. You wanted to know the pulse of the people, who they think would they vote for in the coming election, something like that. So we can also correlate, no? So survey and correlational design, once you gather this information, descriptive information of the preference of the people, you can correlate it with their demographics or whatever information you have. Okay, so that is an example of non-experimental, and naturalistic is also non-experimental in a sense because you don't manipulate any variables. Number 3 is qualitative research. No, so in qualitative research, you have to undergo a process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting non-numerical data to understand subjective perceptions, experiences, and behavior. So qualitative researchers are interpreting phenomena in terms of meaning people bring to them. So the essence of qualitative research is that you wanted to capture how people perceive things and how they create meaning based on their experiences. Okay, so you wanted to capture perceptions, experiences, and behavior. Okay, so that's for qualitative. Usually, there are many designs under qualitative. We have phenomenology, the ethnography, and the grounded theory designs. The pheno is very much focused on the experience of the person. In ethnography, you try to study the culture of a particular unique group, no? And then in grounded theory design, you try to study, and analyze how people were able to adjust, no, and in a certain phenomena, and you try to create a framework, no, to help you understand the setting and how these people were able to adapt at that particular setting. Okay, so these are very important research designs. Okay, but what is very common among this qualitative design is that you are very much concerned with how people create meaning, no? And this has a different theory as to epistemology and ontology. I have a video about this. Feel free to check on that to help you understand what is the difference between ontology and epistemology. All right. So we also have narrative inquiry, case study, and critical theory design. So in narrative theory research, the researcher explores the life of one or more individuals through their stories and arranges these stories commonly in chronological order. So if you wanted to capture the essence of a story, just like all documentaries usually, this is a good research design that you can use. There are also times that you can manipulate certain variables. No? So let's go back to the quantitative research design, wherein you employ quasi-experimental research design to investigate relationship between variables by comparing two groups and does not involve manipulating the independent variables. So basically, you look at groups, no, that are capable of being more or less equivalent to each other, and then you create a setting wherein you'll be measuring the effect of a particular variable. Okay, so define the groups with non-manipulated variable. Single case experimental designs are used to determine if an intervention impacted the individual. There are like case studies but are true experiments. Okay, so you can also do experimental design between subjects, within subjects, and factorial. Okay, so this is in a sense the true experimental. There is already a case of randomization, and the rigors of conducting experimental research are already here. Hopefully, we can create a video on this to really describe in detail each of the designs. And then lastly, we have mixed method or research design. A mixed method research design is a procedure for collecting, analyzing, and mixing both quantitative and qualitative research. So just take note of this. It doesn't mean that you are employing quantitative and qualitative research design, that you are already employing mixed method. Take note of the word procedure here. No, it's a procedure of collecting, analyzing, and mixing both quantitative. So when you do mixed method, it has a very specific procedure as to how you're going to treat the information. Perhaps you start with quantitative data gathering, and then you will be proceeding to qualitative analysis, no, to triangulate the information that you have gathered. So these are very important designs. Okay, so you can also look at these different designs here. No, this is more of the clinical and epidemiological quantitative research designs that you can also use. Okay, if you are more focused on the medical research, okay, so you can also use this one. So in your participants, you discuss how you recruited people in your study. You also clearly describe as the inclusion and exclusion criteria, who will be included and who will not be included. No, and privacy must be respective. No information on text tables, photographs, or written consent must be obtained from parents or guardian. Okay, so for sample size should be large enough to provide precise estimates, effect, and therefore reliable answer to research question being addressed. In general, it should not be less than 30 participants in each group. You know why? Because you try to revisit the central limit theorem. No, the central limit theorem tells us that when we gather information, no, in order for us to approach the normal curve of the information we have gathered, as long as we randomly choose our participants, we'll be able to create information or data that is normally distributed. And with this normal distribution, we'll be able to do our parametric statistical test. Okay, so I think I have discussed this in one of my videos, and it's a very important concept. The central limit theorem is a very important concept that you need to master. But this is a rule of thumb. But as long as it's also important for you to have the appropriate number of respondents, and it's so important that you randomly, choose them, and it should be representative. It should be a representative sample of the respondents that you wanted to be part of your study. All right. So you can also do questionnaires. No, questionnaires usually is a one-stop shop data collecting tool for you to really gather information in a fast and efficient way. Okay. So you should be able to do it in such a way that you'll be able to gather the accurate information, and it should be representative information. Okay. So in experimental research, you should talk about interventions. So interventions are particular strategies that you wish to test. No, basically these are the independent variables of your experimental research, and it is something that you wanted to test the effect to your respondents or to your participants. So try to make sure that you describe very well your interventions, especially in the methodology part, so that the researcher will be able to understand what was the intervention about. Okay, and you also talk about statistical methods. So the statistical methods section should describe how you analyze the data with specific details of the statistical tests and statistical computer packages that were used. Always give the p-value. Don't forget that you use in the critical value to determine the statistical significance. This is usually at 0.05, although the values such as 0.01 are common if it's a test in the medical field. No, so the lower it is, like 0.01, the higher the accuracy is. Okay, for your results, how do you present your result? The most important part of your paper is the results part. It gives original answers to your problems. Use text tables and figures to answer the study questions, and gradually build up from univariate statistics to describe the characteristics of your study sample, then through bivariate analysis to describe relationships between your explanatory and outcome variables, and finally to multivariate analysis. So basically, when you say univariate, you start with descriptions, no? So usually this is how we should write our results and discussion. When you say univariate, these are you start with single, just describe the overall data. So that's paragraph 1. For paragraph 2, you start now describing each of the variables. Now, how many participants had what, no? And then in paragraph 3 to whatever is the last paragraph, you start discussing how the variables relate to each other. Okay, and the last paragraph, if there are no under your statement of the problem, you can start looking at multivariate analysis. So what do you mean by multivariate analysis? This is when you take into consideration how these different variables interplay with each other, no? How they relate to each other at the same time, what is their overall effect. So this is how you should structure your results, no? Okay, so there are samples here that you can use. You can just pause the video if you like. Okay, and there are golden rules for reporting numbers. Now, for instance, a number less than 10. For instance, number less than 10 are words. No, so in the study group, 8 participants, you write 8 as a word. Number 10 or more are numbers. So if you write 120, it should be in a number form. Words, not numbers, begin a sentence. No? And try to be consistent in the list of numbers. Numbers less than 1 begin with 0. No? Do not use a space between a number and its percent sign. Use one space between a number and its unit. Report percentages to only one decimal place if the sample size is larger than 100. Do not use decimal places if the sample size is less than 100. Do not use percentages if the sample size is less than 20. Do not imply greater precision than your measurement instrument. Okay, so these are rules that you can do. Okay, in your discussion part, no, you should try to understand, no, that say what your findings mean, not you would like them to mean or think they ought to mean. So you should be at the same time try to be very objective at the same time. So time to be honest about your limitations of your study, but the limitation should not be under your negligence, no, and try to explain any inconsistencies. It's an opportunity to explain which part of the jigsaw you have put in place. Okay, so you try to be more abstract, try to do some abstractions. What particular aspect of research of the field that you are trying to fill in. And the most daunting section of a paper, this is actually the discussion. Then make notes as you analyze your results and read the literature. So you need to compare. Now, this is the time. The discussion part is the time for you to be very, in a sense, try to be very reflective. What does the current literature say? Does it support the results of your study, or are there discrepancies? And why do you think there are discrepancies? You try to reflect what are your limitations, and then jot down the major ideas and make notes of the literature that supports your findings. So basically, there are parts here that you can use. In the first paragraph, you can restate the aim in more general terms. Do not be tempted to restate the results exactly as the results section. Good phrases being with the results from this study showed that, no, our results indicate that. And then the purpose of the study was to, and we found that. So you can use all these words. No, try to explain how the study will add to present knowledge or change healthcare or whatever topic you have. Now, in the second paragraph, try to address the strengths and limitations of your study design and methods. Be honest about how chance bias or confounding may have influenced your results. Now, in the third paragraph, explain how your results agree or disagree with other studies. Do not discuss all existing journal articles in every remotely related field. No, confine yourself to discuss work in your field that is highly relevant and reputable. Some of them are really citing a lot of literature, but it's just like a hodgepodge of a lot of information. They are not actually related with whatever findings you have. So try to look at what are the gaps that you're trying to fill and how does this support the current literature. So you have to be very careful with this. Your references to the literature need to be both focused and brief. And for the fourth paragraph, it's the exciting summary of the implications of your findings. Answer the question, so what? No, and then it should be a reasonable speculation rather than a rhetoric spin. Okay, so you can use this template for your discussion. Okay, so I kindly look at this, and then that would be all. No, so hopefully, if you've learned something from our short discussion, hopefully you can go ahead and share our channel to your friends and to your Facebook account. Try to set it in a public setting so that we'll be able to help others. And do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button in order for you to be updated for upcoming videos in this channel. We are doing this channel because we wanted to help researchers at the same time teachers who are conducting social researches and who would wanted to publish their paper in reputable journals. So we wish you all the best. Help us with this advocacy again by clicking subscribe and share. And don't forget, if there is a topic about research that you wanted us to discuss and to share about in detail, don't forget to just place it in the comment box so that we'll be able to have that as our next content in this channel. Okay, see you in the next video and thank you so much for your support.